What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another replay battle. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today I've got a 2 versus 2 for you on 1212 AD. This is going to be fought with the Kingdom of Hungary and their allies, the Latin Empire, on one side, and across the field from them, we have the might of the Republic of Genoa and that of feudal France. So, without any further ado, let's get into the army comps and then into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to look at today is the forces of the Kingdom of Hungary, being commanded by yours truly. I have brought Matthias Rex as my general's bodyguard. I've also got a couple units of the Shekeli Lancers. I don't know if that's correct or not. I've also got a couple units of high period Hungarian knights, and actually I've got a lot of high period units in general. I've been informed that the high period units are extremely cost efficient for the Hungarians, and one of the reasons why they are a top-tier faction. But I've also brought, I believe, 4 units of high-period Pavicier. I've also got a single unit of sergeants, just a little bit of leftover money, because why not? Actually, no, I have a whole bunch of sergeants. I believe I have about 4 of them. They're going to be forming up on my center line. Out in front, I got a couple units here of the Pavi crossbows, and that is because the Pavis are extremely difficult to kill in this mod. They're very tanky against arrows, and they're actually not terrible in melee as well. So they make a very versatile infantry unit that is great for screening your formations and shutting down enemy skirmishers. Got a couple units of high period archers as well to round off my skirmish force. They're going to be working behind my front line of infantry, just to give a little bit of support to my Pavis in the event that they need to retreat in the face of a cavalry charge. Finally, I've got 4 units here of the halberdiers. These are the tier 3 late period halberdiers. They are good against, I believe, cavalry and armor. So this is not the infantry-focused version. These guys are mostly there to help me deal with some of the more heavily armored foes across the field for me. And in the event that I need them, I can use them to support my cavalry against the enemy knights. So I think that just about does it for my army. So let's go ahead and let's move on to the Latin Empire, which is being commanded by Blood Magpie. He's got 1 unit of the Latin Emperor here that he's chosen as his general's bodyguard. He's got a few units of the Spear Milice, who are surprisingly good. Milice is a word that is like militia, so you would expect them to not be amazing. And I think their morale is a little bit lower. Actually, I think it's a little bit lower than some like tier 1 units, but they do have, from what I remember, pretty decent stats otherwise. So definitely a cost-effective pick to bring for the Latin Empire. Also bring them, I believe, 1 or 2 units of the dismounted Fratres Milites Templi. Also got some hommes d'armes, as the Latin Empire, I believe, was mostly composed of Frenchmen who sacked Constantinople, so there's a lot of French units in here. Over here we got some foot sergeants, and I think he's got some spear armored foot sergeants hanging out in here as well. He's got his own units of Pavis, I believe 1 unit of Pavi crossbows, no, 2 units of Pavi crossbows, and 3 units of late period foot Turcopoles. Finally, moving on to his cavalry wing, he's got some Fratres Milites Templi, high period. I believe he's got 1 or 2 units of the Turcopoles. I think he just has the 1 unit of the horse archers this time around. Some mounted sergeants here. Oh, another unit of mounted sergeants, another unit of Fratres Milites Templi, and what do you know, he's got 2 units of Turcopoles to back up that heavy cavalry line. But that just about does it for what we're going to call the blue team for the sake of convenience. Let's move across the field and let's see what the red team are bringing to the battle today. Now, over here we have some of the Pavicier. This is the French faction. I can't remember who's playing it, but he's got a large number of Pavicier. He's really invested quite heavily into his cavalry wing, which I don't know if we can see the entirety of it yet. Yeah, he's got a ton of the hommes d'armes. He's also got some gendarmes, I believe, in the back there, all late period. And he's got a unit of the Jeanne d'Arc bodyguard. So Jeanne d'Arc is actually leading this force today, the Maid of Orleans. Let's see what else he's got. I know he's got yet more gendarmes, a ton of heavy cav, and some more hommes d'armes. So he's got about 3 units of gendarmes, 2 or so units of the hommes d'armes, and 1 unit of the Jeanne d'Arc bodyguard. So he's got about 6 units of heavy cav. He's really gone heavy onto his cav wing, and I assume that's because he wants to use his spear units and things like that as the anvil to his cavalry's hammer. So if he's going to be able to succeed, he needs to get that cavalry going. If he loses that, it's a big investment on his part, and yeah, a lot of money basically not doing anything. In any case, moving on to the second line here, we've got 3 units, I believe, 3 or 4 units of the Arbalétriers, who are basically Pavy crossbows. Not easy to beat in a skirmish fight. I think they're really, the only kind of counter they have is like cavalry charges and things like that. Pavys are very, very strong. He's also got one unit over here of the mercenary Genoese crossbows. Moving into the back, we've got his final line of elite infantry. We've got a lot of hommes d'armes here, mixed in with some écorcheurs footmen, I believe about 2 units of each. Both these are pretty damn strong. In my experience, the écorcheurs footmen are very cost effective. They're quite a good infantry unit, and will definitely pull their weight on a battle line. Finally, in the back here, we have the bishop's retinue. This is the general's bodyguard. I wonder if they have like a bishop as the general here. I don't quite see his general. Would be kind of cool though if they did. But in any case, I think that just about rounds off France. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at his ally, that being the Republic of Genoa. And I believe this guy has brought a lot of heavy cavalry as well. So we are certainly outgunned in terms of our heavy cavalry. I think most of my heavy cavalry is like tier 1 and things like that. But in any case, he's got 3 or 4 units of the condottieri. What else has he got? He's got some lancieri, a large number of lancieri. In the back here, he's got his tier 3 units. He's being the picheri. And I think he's got a very large number of the tier 2 spadaccini as well. Indeed, he does. About 5 or 6 units of them. Finally, we have his general's bodyguard. I think this is like the Doge of Venice, or maybe it's just like a generic general's bodyguard, like a Crusader States kind of bodyguard. And over out on his wing, you can see a couple more units of those condottieri. Now let's move on to his skirmish line. He's got, I think he's got pretty well uniquely 4 or 5 units of archery, which I normally would not do. I find, so far as I get a little bit more experience with 12-12, I would totally bring some crossbows, at least some pavies, because the archers like this really struggle. So if against crossbow units like that, so if you bring units like this and the other team brings pavies, you've kind of hamstrung yourself in a serious way in the skirmish fight. But in any case, that just about does it for the army comps. Let's go ahead and let's get right into the replay. The battle truly begins with a little bit early skirmish action here from Blood Magpie. You can see him trying to focus down some of the heavy cavalry from the French. This is really the best thing I think that he can be doing with that bow cavalry and their heavy shot at this point, because we are heavily outclassed in terms of cavalry. They've got a lot of shot cav, not a lot of melee cav though. That's really the biggest thing I think that we have in our advantage right now, is that we have a couple units of like mounted sergeants and things like that, which are, I think the general idea is that the melee cav is better once it gets stuck in, but of course the shot cav is a little bit better on the charge, which seems intuitive and obvious, but there are some strange opaque. There's a lot of strange opaqueness in terms of the way that stats work in this game, so I would not like to assume. In any case, over on my end, I think, yeah, I've got my own bow cav, and I'm trying to do the same thing the Blood Magpie is doing. Get into the condottieri, get within range of them, and try and get some early harass off. Thin their numbers out, because this tier 3 shot cav is a nightmare to kill. But the Genoan player very wisely having moved in some of his archery to help screen those cavalry. So now I can't get close to my bow cav in order to do what I want to do. Over on the other end, we see the French player, I think, getting a little bit impatient. He's going to move forward with his entire contingent of paviciers, who are pretty well unsupported by the rest of his infantry, except for a few units here of the arbalétriers, who are, they're pretty good, but I don't know. He doesn't have the killing power needed, really, I think, to smash through Blood Magpie's force here. So this is going to turn out to be a big issue for him. Moving on to the other side, you can see that his ally Genoa has opted not to take this rash approach and is going to continue to exchange skirmish blows with myself and my skirmishers and the rest of my army. Ooh, that's ugly. Those paviciers are just getting focused down hard. Outside of their shield wall formation, they are a little bit vulnerable to arrows, it would seem. So that massed volley fire there into that one unit of paviciers is going to significantly weaken the French line, and one weak link in the chain can potentially cause the entire thing to break. So the French is really going to have to move up with some reinforcements as quickly as possible. Over here, those paviciers charging into the early period foot sergeants, a tier 1 versus tier 2 battle, although the paviciers have taken a fair amount of casualties in the process, and they're actually losing right now. Ooh, bam, a big charge from behind from my Schelke Lancers. But the French are going to take this opportunity out to move in and try and deal with some of the cavalry support that I sent. Whoopsie. That I sent over to my ally. Big charge from the rear by those gendarmes is going to do a serious amount of damage to my Schelke Lancers. You're going to see them really start to drop there. Look at that. Losing decisively. Very, very ugly for them. The French are going to exploit this gap in the line here with their gendarmes, but this tiered defense here from the Latin Empire is going to ensure that these cavalry really don't have anywhere to go. So instead of going after the archers like they planned, they are going to hammer and anvil the center line here, charging straight into the back of the gendarme, and that's going to do a terrible amount of damage. So now the Latin Empire, really, it's on them to try and shut down this menace in the back of their lines. You can see that these gendarmes are going to pull out of there pretty well immediately, charge straight on into the foot Turcopoles. Oh, that's going to be real ugly too. So these gendarmes wreaking havoc on the back of the Latin Empire's lines. You can see over here my shell key beginning to break, which leaves us a little bit thin on the ground in terms of cavalry. So the French do have the advantage here. They are overwhelming the Latin Empire's right flank with their huge numbers of cavalry that they can very, very quickly bring to bear. See some gendarmes over here. It looks like these Fratres Militaires Templiers are trying to run down maybe some routing units or something, but they are going to get caught in a big charge from the rear by the gendarmes. Over on this end, you can see the mounted sergeants losing decisively to those gendarmes in close combat, and yet more cavalry from the Italians pouring in. The condottieri looking like they're going to beeline right for those foot Turcopoles or come around the back of the line and cause some more problems. Speaking of problems being caused by cavalry, still got those gendarmes running around in the back here, trying to find some way that we can pin them down and deal with them. Although they are beginning to waver a little bit. I think that's because they've taken about half casualties. Yeah, just a little bit under half casualties so far, and I think they're constantly being focused down by some of those crossbows. Oh, that was devastating. They're going to try and charge into some pikes before they can form up, but the pikes are going to get themselves more or less into a line quickly enough that those gendarmes are going to have to pull out of there. They're going to go for another hammer and anvil strike on the spear militia. So far, not looking so good, however, for the French. Despite the assistance that the cavalry is giving them, they are slowly, I believe, losing this fight on the line. Of course, now that I say that, you can see a lot of routing over here. The gendarmes fleeing in the face of those late-period paviciers, some Tier 3 paviciers. I've actually brought in a unit of my halberdiers here to try and help my ally out. Another unit of gendarmes in the back, charging into the rear of my formed-up pavicier. They're going to get pinned, however, between my pavicier and some incoming anti-cavalry halberdiers. And they're going to make sure I work with those gendarmes, and they're going to break and flee, and I think they're going to shatter. And that's going to leave my my halberdiers here free to move into this line of late-period paviciers, who are now basically without support. Moving on over onto this side, you can see a cavalry fight looking like it's going to start to materialize between both my forces and the forces of Genoa. Now, I've hidden a lot of my cavalry in the woods, and I know that the Italian player has seen them. So he's moved a little bit too close, so I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to try and pick a fight here, deny him that charge with my Shelky Lancers, a little bit of support in the back there from my Shkelyek Lancers, and I'm going to get a nice surround on this large number of condottieri. So I'm now going to be tying down a lot of his cavalry, bringing in some of my horse archers from the rear, and you can see the Italians are going to now pour more and more of their cavalry in here to try and stop me. So I'm going to pick a fight. I'm going to charge my Hungarian knights into these condottieri. I was thinking about maybe going for the archery, but at this point, there's enough cavalry on the field I need to deal with them in some form. So I'm going to try and kite a little bit here with my horse archers. I want to say it properly, but I know I can't. But I'm just going to continue to kite him using my heavy shot, try and whittle down some of those condottieri as best as I can. Let's go ahead and let's slow it down just a little bit here. Things getting real over on this end. It looks like the condottieri managed to get stuck in with some late-period Turcopoles. Not a good idea. Those Bocav not going to have a good time against the heavily armored condottieri. Over on this side, we got some gendarmes and some gendarmes double-teaming a unit of what looks like mounted sergeants here. And there's also a unit of the Fratres Militaires Templiers locked in combat with them as well. But these guys have their backs exposed to those Turcopoles, which is... oh, that's going to be real bad. That heavy shot is going to tear these guys absolutely asunder. And you can already see it beginning to happen. Those heavily armored gendarmes, who are very expensive and very powerful. They're getting hacked down here, dropping like flies in the face of that relentless Turcopole barrage. Over on this end, you can see some paviciers have managed to penetrate in behind the Latin Empire's lines. They're going to get routed yet again, looking like, I think they might have routed behind the lines. Now they're getting routed for a second time. Over on this end, oh, it looks like the Italians have sallied forward. So there's a lot of Spadaccini on this line mixed in with the Lancieri, who are really giving my sergeants what for. My sergeants are pretty hard pressed at the moment to try and hold these guys back. Let's get a nice little cinematic shot of that. That is beautiful. Say what you will about Attila, the game engine for this is absolutely gorgeous. All along the line, things looking more or less equal. My Pavicier and all of my units were well formed up, well prepared for that charge. They are going to stand up to it pretty well. I'm going to move in my Pavis and my skirmishers to try and focus fire down some of the late period archery and get them in position for when these pikes get a little bit closer to the line. Now, a word on pikes and why it's important to try and counter them properly. They will massacre everything from the front. Infantry, like really good heavy infantry, obviously cavalry, they are a nightmare. They have a little bit of a defensive bonus against arrows as well. So AP missiles, sustained volley fire from AP missiles like Pavi crossbows, for example, is really the only way I found of effectively dealing with the pike units in this game. Naturally, hammer and anvils work as well, but good luck trying to get that off. If they turn around, they will slaughter your troops. But in any case, the Genoese moving in with their 2 units of late period Pichetti. But they're going to be walking right into a death trap. We've got all of our skirmishers formed up quite well on the line in preparation for that attack. So we're going to be able to deal some serious damage to those pikes as soon as they come within range. Oh man, over here in the middle of the skirmish fight, these Archetti just really getting cut down by the massed volley fire of my archer line in addition to my allies. Let's go over on this end. This is where the real action is. We got some, what are these? These Omdal? We got some pike milice, who I think I missed in the army phase. But these pike milice are surrounded, being completely butchered here by the Pavicier and the Omdam who've come in from the rear as well. This is real bad for the Latin Empire. He's letting himself get surrounded. Over on this end, see this infantry. Over here, the foot sergeants doing a little bit better against the Ekelschafudmen. Not what I would have expected. And this is what I mean by, like, strange stat opaqueness. Normally you would expect these foot sergeants to be losing quite heavily to the Ekelschafudmen, who are solid infantry, and they're a tier above them, but they don't seem to be. In fact, this unit is winning despite having lower numbers and being a tier below. So it's a little bit strange. Over on this end, you can see the foot sergeants here routing a unit of late period Omdam with the help of one of the spear-armed foot sergeants. Over here, Ekelschafudmen, the final line of the French has been committed, and they're not having a great time right now. Although they seem to be beating the Omdam here, but losing to them elsewhere. I don't know. It's strange. Over here, the French cavalry routing another unit of my allies' cavalry. But for the most part, the French cavalry has been dealt with. Now, there's still a few of them left on the field over here. There's about 33, and that could be enough if they were to charge into the back of those Fratres Militares Templi and the Omdam, for example. They would do some serious work. Over here, it looks like the Bishop's retinue locked in combat against some mounted sergeants, doing real well for themselves. In the back lines, though, Blood Magpie doing what he does best, being an absolute monster with his bow cavalry, causing all kinds of problems for the Genoese skirmish line. And the presence of that cavalry in behind units like these Pichetti, for example, is going to have a significant effect on their morale and their survivability. Now, we are still focusing them down with our archers, but now we're going to have some cavalry in the back lines who are able to do exactly that same thing. So we really have no need to move in with our infantry at this point. All we have to do is hold. Just hold, and those pikes will eventually melt away. Now let's move over onto the other end. You can see that a unit of the Spadaccini here being routed by my sergeants. My sergeants did real well against those guys, and I think a lot of that has to do with these unformed up units charging into a shield wall. It gives these guys a lot of defensive bonuses that help them stay alive in close combat a lot longer than they otherwise would. Archery looking like they're out of ammunition, maybe? Yeah, they appear to be out of ammunition, but they are still quite heavily armored, so they make like arrow sponges after the fact. No, they still have a ton of ammunition. They just don't seem to be firing. So now that my sergeants have been victorious on the main line, I'm going to bring them in to these archery, try and silence the Genoese skirmish line, and we're actually winning it in a few other places along the line as well. I can see another battalion of the Spadaccini fleeing in the face of my forces. I've got some halberdiers here, not really formed up all that great, and that's because, I don't know, their formation makes them do weird things. They don't seem to be able to move in these like long lines like this. Instead of instead of reforming on an axis the way that other units see, these guys just kind of like turn in this big line. So it's weird to get them into formation and to get them stuck in. And they're actually going to suffer for that quite badly. You can see them now being attacked on several sides here. I think we got some, this is mostly Lancieri, but I thought we had some French units in there as well. And my halberdiers are going to find themselves surrounded. They're actually going to start to lose ground to those spear units that they would normally beat. Over here, the Picheri have suffered quite heavily, mostly at the hands of our archers, now down to about, just about half the unit. More and more fire being poured in there. You can see them wavering. Now they are going to break. That's going to free up a large number of my Paviciers. And you can see my Paviciers really suffering in combat against this Picheri. They were not in there for very long, but you can really see the damage that pikes can do when they are unchecked. Let's move on back over to this end. The French doing a great job with their bishop's retinue, looking like they might shatter a very large contingent of the remaining Latin Empire's forces. And they still have, oh, look at this, they got 5 units of crossbows still hanging out and doing some serious damage. In a big blob like this, I mean, they're easily surrounded and disrupted, but we don't really have a lot of cavalry over here, so that's not much of a threat to them. But it is going to allow me to put some serious flanking fire into this large blob of troops with a little bit of support, I think, from my archers over here. Never mind, actually, these are the Pavis crossbows from the Latin Empire, along with their foot turcopoles. This is actually Blood Magpies. Nice little maneuver here. He's going to be able to whittle down these mercenary Genoese crossbows and the rest of the arbalétriers if they stay bunched up for that, like that for much longer, I should say. Over here along the line, you can see the Italians are actually gaining ground. My unit of Tier 3 halberdiers here not having a good time. They're actually going to begin to rout. I'm going to try and bring in a little bit of support. And it looks like in the form of my Pavis crossbows, I think they might be hunting down some of these routing units, and so getting themselves a little bit farther out of formation than they really need to be. But honestly, the arrival of these guys, this mistake turned out to be a bit of a blessing, because that local superiority that it gave me was enough to push the morale for the Spadaccini over the edge, and they are now going to begin to flee in the face of my superior numbers, and that's going to free up another portion of the line and allow my halberdiers an opportunity to reform. So the Spadaccini that still remain, pushing hard against my sergeants, but I'm going to be able to bring some reinforcements in the form of these halberdiers and hold down this line for just a little bit longer. And it's all thanks to a little mistake that I made with my Pavi crossbows. Kind of funny how that works out. Now, I think this is around the point where the Italian general ends up going down. Yeah, that's him over here. He's being focused down by arrows and our cavalry and things like that. You can see a lot of our cav in the back lines, along with some halberdiers to support them. And a lot of horse archers as well have just wiped out a unit of the, I believe these are the Genoese archers, and managed to take down their general at the same time. So a lot of these Genoese forces are going to begin to break and run, and we are actually getting a little bit of shattering here, so we're not going to see these Spadaccini come back. They've completely lost the will to fight at this point. Now, over on this end, I'm going to bring in my general's bodyguard, Matthias Rex here, running right through those archery, and I'm going to route these guys real quick, and I'm going to try and bring them into the rear of these Spadaccini and the Lancieri. But just the mere presence of all of these troops, especially menacing their flank, and now some cavalry in the back, is going to be enough to send these troops into a panic, and they're going to be able, or they're going to start to flee now off of the battlefield. Over on this end, it's an absolute disaster. France and my ally have just done a number on one another. If we look at this, casualties very high on both sides, fighting definitely the thickest over here, closer to the center line, where the Picheri were located. So now my ally Blood Magpie and I have the odious task of trying to run towards these formed up crossbows. 4 units of arbalétriers, along with, I believe, a fairly depleted unit of mercenary Genoese crossbowmen. This is not the kind of thing you want to run into. You saw what our archers did to the red team when they were moving in the initial stages of the battle, and now they're going to have the opportunity to do the same thing to us. You can see a lot of my sergeants right here acting as a bit of a meat shield, trying to rush forward and maybe tie up as much of these arbalétriers as is all possible. From the back, you can see me bringing in a unit of my Shelyek, some of my Lancers going to come in here, and I'm actually going to try and focus down these mercenary crossbows with my missiles as well, but unfortunately, a lot of that's going to hit my own Shelyek, and a lot of them are going to die as a result of friendly fire. A little bit of a foolish move on my part. But at this point, we've pretty well got the battle, I would think. So we're just gonna, I don't know, we're gonna make mistakes that I don't think we would normally use if we were playing a little bit more, if we're playing a little bit more cautiously. Over here, the arbalétriers really suffering heavily from both cap charges from the rear, some Turk bolts coming in from the back, and also sustained missile fire as we slowly move in our lines in a reasonably ordered fashion around all that remains of the French crossbowmen. Over here, a couple units of Bocav and a little bit of infantry moving in as well. Going to shatter that unit, and this unit of Arbalétriers over here as well is going to find themselves isolated, focused down, and they're going to shatter alongside their brothers. And that basically does it for the French army. It's all shattered at this point. I think there are some Genoese who still have the heart to fight, but for the most part, not too many. Yeah, these Lancieri are going to rout pretty well immediately. One unit of the Spadaccini here they still have the will to fight, but a charge from Matthias Rex can send most of their companions into a little bit of a panic. And once my cavalry manages to meet the ranks of the Spadaccini, they are going to follow their brothers off the battlefield, and that is going to be it for the replay. So let's go ahead, do a little bit of a post-game review here. Now, the French forces, the Paviciers that they had, really didn't do a whole lot for them, and that is because, at least in my opinion, because they were so unsupported. It was an entire wing of his army that just wasn't able to, he wasn't even really able to get the most out of, because there was no support for them. It was like spearmen against basically the entire front line that could be easily supported with reserves from my ally Blood Magpie. So Technocartite is the player who's playing France, and I gotta say I was really impressed with what he did with his cav. He was very aggressive, and it really seemed to pay off. He managed to get a couple of really nice hammer and anvil strikes, which are usually something that you are able to get once your opponent's cav has been swept from the field. But he was very quick on exploiting gaps in Blood Magpie's formation, managed to get in behind his lines, hit some foot Turcopoles real hard, hit some of the line infantry from Blood Magpie as well, and get a decent amount of kills. Elsewhere, he just wasn't able to get the value, I think, that he wanted out of his gendarme and his homme d'armes. His cav micro was, I gotta say, was on point, but they just got bogged down, and eventually they started to take losses through attrition, and then that's a very expensive portion of his army that just ended up being completely annihilated. His Arbalétriers, however, that he used to support his Paviciers, they got a lot of kills, but I don't know if that was from the infantry, and it was really the infantry fight that he needed to win. I think a lot of this are from skirmishers and things like that, or maybe from some kills a little bit later on in the game where they managed to get some infantry. Écorché footmen doing well, 104, 140, obviously a very strong unit there. And let's see, his Bishop's Retinue. Yeah, his Bishop's Retinue with 107 kills in your General's Bodyguard. Not bad at all. My Pavi line doing, I would say, reasonably well. Some of them didn't really get into the fight until a lot later. I was a little bit too passive, perhaps, with some of my Paviciers, which is definitely a mistake that I find I make a lot in 12-12, is that I err on the side of caution. Because I know that if I move forward, kind of like the French did, and I don't think is necessarily an engagement that I can win, or that I am not 100% sure that I will win, then I don't usually take it because I don't want to get destroyed. So yeah, I was probably a little bit too passive with my spear line. I could have moved them forward and supported my ally a little bit more. Halberdiers doing real well. My Sergeant, look at that. No one got under 150 kills. That's gorgeous. Archers got a lot of kills as well. 3 units of my high period archers, a couple units of the Pavi crossbows doing well. And the Shelky Lancers not really doing all that great. Not bringing a whole lot of value for a tier 3 unit, not as much as I was hoping that they would. And my Hungarian Knights did alright as well. My Shekoliek also did performed quite well. So move on now to the Genoese and the Latin Empire. Looking at the Latin Empire first, the Spear Milice. I mean, they did all right. That's not too bad at all. Foot Sergeants got a fair amount of kills. Pike Milice didn't do too badly as well. Dismounted Fratres Militaires Temple, however, I believe that's a halberd unit, hacking down 174 men, and the rest of his army. He had a lot of infantry, a whole lot of infantry as well, which is why moving in with just those Pavis was, just the Paviciers, was a big mistake on the part of France. A lot of his infantry got a lot of kills, and I think that's mostly the Pavis. A lot of foot Turcopoles here. I think this one here with 32 is the one that got caught out by the gendarme. Pavi crossbows. His cavalry, by and large, did really well. His mounted archers, of course, getting a lot of kills. They can be very effective when used well. Over here against this is the army that was fighting directly opposite me. The Lancieri did not do well at all. Spadaccini doing a lot better, pretty well across the line. They did about average, I think. Arcieri, not many kills in the Arcieri. And again, this is what I was talking about earlier on in the army composition phase. The Arcieri just don't have the oomph and the survivability that they need to go toe-to-toe with the crossbows. So my Genie's crossbows were able to just tear these guys asunder while basically being immune to any reprisal. And finally, 5 units of very expensive 3rd-tier cav. The Condottieri did all right. I mean, some of them did really poorly, 14 and 13 there, but 78 on this one, that's not terrible. 36 and 42, that seems about average. So that's it for this. There's going to be a Christmas special that's going to be coming out a little bit later today. I will tell you that it is another Reforged battle, because I know you guys love those, but I won't tell you exactly all the details. You have to wait till the video comes out to see them for yourself. So in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JmonsterTW. I hope you guys have enjoyed so far, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.